Towson ball, past, present, and future, all week long, and a series that I wrote for the internet at WNST.net that you can read about the empty seats here. And I woke up in Cleveland, Ohio on Monday morning, where we stole their team once, and this week the team that was stolen from us visits yet again with playoffs on the line and really struggling right now. Joe Staysniak covers all things Colts because he used to be one of them. He's been on the radio 23 years now in Indiana at 1070 The Fan and 93.5 out there in Indianapolis. And certainly, my long relationship with Chuck Pagano goes back far. 3-11, man. It's really tough when you don't have your quarterback, right, brother?
Oh, it's tough when you don't have your quarterback. It's tough when you're injury plagued. We put 2 more starters on IR this week. I think we're up to 13. And it goes back, I think, even before Chuck got here. This is the most injured team in the NFL. They've got documentation to prove it, and by a long shot. So we're not really sure if we're snake bitten. We're not really sure what's going on here. But, there are a lot of things that just have not gone the Colts' way since being able to draft Andrew Luck and Chuck coming down with cancer and that whole thing. It was right about that time that everything took a turn for the worse, and it is so bad right now that if you want the team back, you can have them.
Oh, hey now. We already got one we're trying to sell tickets for. What do you think we are, Los Angeles or something, taking 2 teams?
Hey.
We don't need all that. What is the temperature out there? And I'm discussing this all week long because, look, I was in Cleveland. I don't need to say anything more. You played a lot of football games in Cleveland. You know the passion of the people there, but I don't know what you expect when the team's 0-13. At what point is it okay for the fans to say we don't want to go? Certainly we did that to Tiger Bob back here in the 70s and 80s, and it cost us our franchise. I mean, St. Louis, San Diego, Oakland. You look at what's happened to Jacksonville. Carolina's on for sale now. These were all the contemporaries where we were trying to get a team back, and it was really hard to do that. But then once you get the team back, you got to play well, and that hasn't happened in Cleveland. It didn't happen in Indianapolis for a long time. And then Peyton Manning comes along, and it's much like these people up in New England are going to figure out when Tommy Boy retires. You can't stay at the top forever. 14 out of 15 years the Colts made the playoffs. I mean, that's outrageous. But then there's 3-11, and what do you do with it when it gets to this point?
Well, that's exactly right. And I tell you what, the one thing about Indianapolis that's fantastic is it really is pretty much a blue-collar town. I mean, we appreciate effort. You don't have to necessarily win championships all the time, but you damn well better be competitive, and you damn well better be working hard to try and get there. And our Indiana Pacers are a prime example of that. We thought we hit the jackpot with drafting Paul George, and we just got Miles Turner a couple of years, and we thought the 2 of these guys are just going to grow old together and be fantastic. And then you hear there's a guy here that doesn't want to be here. Well, that's the wrong thing to say about Indianapolis. And we just announced, I don't know, a week or so, just a week ago, Commissioner Adam Silver just announced we're going to have the NBA All-Star game here. Well, in 2021, we're going to have an NBA All-Star game. We're going to have a Final Four. We're going to have the Big Ten Football Championship. We're going to have a couple of Indianapolis 500s. Within this 13-month period, it's pretty amazing everything that goes on here. And so to hear somebody that doesn't want to be here or doesn't embrace, one of the greatest, fan bases as far as, nobody's overly critical here. We don't slam one another. We're not, have 4 or 5 different newspapers here and talk shows where, everybody you have to have that loudmouth guy that just goes out there and complains about everything. It's not that kind of town. But you know what? You better work hard at what you do to get the fans' money, and we do have a bit of an issue. That's why we had a dome. I mean, we're sitting here right now. This week's unseasonably warm, in the mid to upper 40s, so not really used to that. But I tell you, we can have a 70-degree day, but the way our stadium sits, if you got that roof open, half the folks are going to bake in the sun. The other folks are going to need a light sweater. And you'll have people that'll complain on both sides that it was too hot or it was too chilly, or, then the taxpayers are like, we paid $1 billion for this thing. Why isn't it open? Why aren't we using this thing?
They paid $1 billion twice there. That's how you got the team in '84 was the Hoosier Dome, right? So, they've done it twice and really did it off the back of Peyton Manning and did it off the back of this incredible success that franchise had by getting an iconic player. We had that here with Ray Lewis, and when it's gone, it's really, really hard to recapture, isn't it?
Well, I think it is, but I tell you, it just has to be reinvented in a different way. And we're figuring out now that you can't. And Jimmy Irsay talked about this, and he was disappointed when Peyton, finally left and the retirement and everything. We only got one Super Bowl win and 2 Super Bowl appearances, and we had to be better. We had to be a more balanced team. And so we were at the crossroads again. This team is pathetic on defense and has been for a couple of years. And that's where we thought that, Chuck was going to do such great things. Well, you still have to have players, and you still have to be able to draft. And that's why Ozzie Newsome, was so fantastic in so many years. How many Pro Bowl guys, how many Hall of Fame guys do you have from all those drafts? We've got guys from, drafts 2, 3, well, actually like 3, 4, 5 years ago that aren't even in football. The whole draft was wiped out. We don't have anybody from those drafts anymore. So that's really where it's at. And again, you got to be lucky with health. And we have been so unfortunate when it comes to guys getting injured and, not being able to, live up to their potential, that it's really not been fair at all. So,
well, it's going to cost Chuck his job at the end, right? I mean, that's what happens in this business, right?
Absolutely it will. And the unfortunate part is we're in the worst division over the last 10 years. I mean, this division's horrible. You got teams that just can't get out of their own way. Houston starts out a ball of fire. They lose their quarterback, and J.J. Watt, and Whitney Merciless, and those guys. But, they fell by the wayside. Tennessee loses to San Francisco on Sunday. What the heck's that? And then you get a Jacksonville team that's void of any kind of a quarterback. Blake Bortles is one of the worst in the league. We play Blake Bortles twice a year, and he has quarterback ratings of 120 in each game. So they're a one-sided team. There's only one team in this AFC South that's an average team, and that would be Jacksonville, because they can play the hell out of some defense. But offensively, they just have to stay out of their own way, and they finally learned that. Blake Bortles has finally learned that, and Doug Marrone has finally kind of learn that don't let him beat you. Go out and win a ball game with your defense. And, that's kind of the struggle. We haven't had defense around here in forever. Even back when I was playing, some 25 years ago, it's been a long time since we've had any kind of defense at all. And, I think that when it comes draft time, that's what we're going to have to draft some of those ambient type players that'll keep you up at night. We haven't had that since Bob Sanders. And he was an injury guy that didn't fulfill his potential either, even though he was a Defensive Player of the Year once.
Joe Staysniak, former player, has been doing sports radio in Indianapolis, Indiana for almost a quarter of a century now, back to his playing days at 1070 The Fan there. You can check him out on the internet at 1070 The Fan, out on their Twitter as well. This is kind of a fascinating thing that I had not really thought about, and I'm thinking about it with my Ghost of Baltimore's football past and the present and the future, and wondering, what happens to the fan base and whatnot. But, when I look at Jacksonville, when I look at Nashville, when I look at Houston, it's almost like the Colts' dominance really kind of screwed their franchises up in the same way that you could look at the AFC East and say what New England has done has really kind of destroyed the Jets and the Dolphins and the Bills, because it's destroyed their mojo, all right? I mean, the fan base doesn't ever believe they can win the division, right? And none of those franchises, all 6 of them, scuffle to ever get to 8 wins in these glorious era, when Manning's throwing it around for 450 yards a week and they're going 14-2 and waiting on Tom Brady, which happened for about a decade. It really is amazing what dominance does and how it sort of kills the faith in the other places. I certainly woke up to that in Cleveland on Monday morning, Joe.
Well, that's the thing, too. It's funny because then you start building a team to win your division. And building a team to win your division may not necessarily get you to its championship type level. When I think of your division, I think of long tenured coaches, and I think of running games. I think of you better be able to play in the elements. I think of a decent balance when it comes to run and pass, and I think of defenses that are going to flat out get after you and out physical you. You don't think about those things when you think of the AFC South. You think of everybody was trying to build a defense. It was, like you said, going back to getting that quarterback. If you can't get that quarterback, then you damn well better build a defense that can handle the Peyton Mannings and the Andrew Lucks. And so you're right. I think in a case like that, they've stocked up. The rest of the AFC South has stocked up on defense so much, and three of really good defenses. And Jacksonville finally got healthy enough to prove that this year. And unfortunately for Houston, the injuries have just killed them. But Tennessee's been an underrated defensive team. So all these teams, when they couldn't get their quarterback, they went to the other side of the ball, and unfortunately, then they've struggled, and they've struggled outside the division in winning some ball games. So, yeah, it all comes down to winning. That's all a fan wants. However you can get that done, and winning will bring fans in, but then it becomes a consistent thing. And when you're here in Indianapolis, it got to be, 10 wins is fantastic, but when are we taking that next step? I think the thing that's going on here right now, fans aren't showing up. And didn't in the last game, and I don't know what they'll be for the Houston game on New Year's Eve. Probably not a great crowd either. But there is that thought process that Andrew Luck will be back, and with a new general manager here, we're excited that the draft will be good, and we'll have a guy that knows what he's doing, and he'll be able to hit on some of these first, second, and third round picks. And then we've also got a ton of money. We're a top 3 team when it comes to spending in free agency. We've got somewhere around $90 million that'll free up and be available. So I think it's a wait-and-see approach with our fans here, at least at this point, because they know they can get it done if we have an Andrew Luck. We know he's good for 6 or 8 wins just having him on our team, but how good will the rest of the guys around him be? And pretty smart fan base here when it comes to that kind of stuff. But they're like anybody else; it's hard-earned money, and they're not going to throw it away on average anymore. I mean, they want better than that.
Joe Staysniak joining us here from Indianapolis, Indiana. All this is brought to you by our friends at King Discount Liquors Lottery. Beer, booze, and the best prices in Baltimore. Got a few days left to get over there. Get yourself some Malbec, some of the good stuff. Maybe a little champagne for the holidays here, some vino. For Christmas. Give the King a ring. He's over on Pulaski Highway. Paul King and King Discount Liquors. Very, very loyal, awesome sponsors of WNST. Box Hill Pizzeria has the best crab cakes in Harford County, and they can now be shipped anywhere, including Indianapolis. You can find out more at boxhillpizzeria.com. And, of course, if you're up there in Abingdon, please bring me some of the salad dressing. Stop and see Tommy and Chris. Let them know that I'm almost out of the dressing, and I'll take my crab cakes down here as well. boxhillpizzeria.com. Joe Staysniak joining us here on the eve of Christmas and the eve of the ghost of Baltimore's football past coming in here. Joe, it's not lost on us that the Colts can wreck the Ravens season here this week, and I don't know what you think about the odds of that, but what is going well for them? And I would say this, a couple of overtime games, offense has had leads in a bunch of weeks. This has not been sort of a woebegone situation there as much as they need better football players. They haven't been blown out a whole lot there. I mean, I'm expecting a real football game here as the sun sets over Baltimore this Saturday.
Well, you should, at least to get the start, because that's what this team does. We've got average players. Let's start there. And so average players will get it done for 3 quarters, but average players won't win you ball games. And so we've been beat a lot in the fourth quarter. Matter of fact, fourth quarter is like scary how poor the Colts have been. Outscored 123-35. The Colts have been outscored in every single one of the quarters, but specifically the fourth quarter has been the detriment and the downfall. And it's funny, when you look at a 3-11 team, what are the 2 things that normally stand out most? The team gives the ball up a ton, and there's normally a whole bunch of penalties. The Colts have only lost to giveaway takeaway 3 times this season, but they've got 11 losses. And so that kind of goes not only to the talent, but maybe that was something even more specific this last week in the game that we lost against Denver on Thursday night. Was the coaching was so horrible. I mean, I'm a fan of coaches, and I know the work they put in, and I've defended Chuck, and I've defended Ted Monachino, and I've defended a lot of these guys, throughout the year. But it was a pathetic coaching performance, and unfortunately, when you have mediocre players and as many injuries as we've dealt with, we got 3 rookie corners that are playing right now. That's basically they're handling everything because of all the injuries we've had. And unfortunately, the coaching staff has made it so remedial that even guys like Brock Osweiler had 147.7 quarterback rating against us. We are a terrible quarter. You could take the worst quarterbacks in the league, stack them up against this Colts defense, and they will all excel. And so it's an unfortunate deal, but the coaches are holding back the players because the players aren't that good, but it's been such a vanilla package that even horrible quarterbacks can come out and have great games against the Colts. So I don't see that changing at all. The greatest thing that's happened to the Colts so far is this 3-11 record. Is they're slated right now to pick third. And, it's unfortunate. We all love Chuck Pagano as a person. He is just as good as gold, and you can't find a better man. But as far as a head coach, it was an experiment gone wrong, and unfortunately the owner had been loyal to this idea for 6 years now, and it never got any better. The 3 years to start, pretty impressive, 11-5 with Andrew Luck, and then as soon as Andrew gets hurt or dinged up, we go to 8-8 seasons, and now a losing season. So yeah, things are going to have to change, and this team will go out and they'll give great effort. But they're just not very talented, and the coaches don't have enough. I don't think have enough confidence in them to be able to do anything that's past a remedial level when it comes to football. We'll line up exactly where we're going to play. We're not going to try and fool you, and it's really sad that it's gotten to this point. But you know what? They're a bunch of good guys, but they're going to be a bunch of employed guys when it comes to January 1st.
Who's their best player, Joe?
This year, having a good year. Let's see. We got a rookie punter. We got Adam Vinatieri.
I knew you were going there. I mean, look, we've had Justin Tucker, who's been our best player for a couple of years around here too.
See, that's the only thing that we can do in this game coming up is that, we can stay with you maybe a little bit on specialties. We're not very good at returning anything, but we're pretty good at covering. Jack Doyle's a pretty good player. He's had better numbers. He's had career numbers this year, pretty much out of necessity, though, because nobody else is getting open. You can't really throw him the ball. And I tell you, another guy is Jonathan Hankins on the defensive line. We spent $10 million a year to get him away from the New York Giants, and he has been really, really good. The run defense, got a lot better as the year went on. I think we were as high as 14th when it comes to stopping the run. Not as great anymore. You give up all those yards to Shady McCoy and, 6 feet of snow in Buffalo. It was a pretty sad situation there. And then, of course, we got run on against Denver also. So, this defense is kind of giving some back. But, no, we got 13 starters that T.Y. Hilton, should, have more yards than any receiver last year, and he's struggling to get to 1,000 this year. A little bit has to do with the quarterback. A little bit has to do with T.Y. Hilton. A lot of it has to do with the protection. And so, and a lot of it has to do with the coaches and doing what they need to do to get them open. So now it's a struggle from top to bottom here. There's some players. I mean, don't get me wrong, but for the most part, this is a very average team when it comes to talent.
I love Chuck Pagano, but he's in the way this week. You know how that goes, Joe. Just business this week. We got playoffs on the mind already. Always great to visit with you, man. I'll be out there for the combine, and you mentioned this warm weather. The coldest days of my life, literally, have been spent in Indianapolis during that combine in February and March. I mean,
February can be kind of crazy. Yes, you just never really know. And then, of course, when we had the Super Bowl, we had one of the mildest winters, or at least that week, that we've ever had. So, yeah, that's Indiana. If you don't like the weather, you stick around for an extra day, and it'll change on you and be something either you love or you hate. So, now, Indy's a great town, but that's a great thing. You don't have to go outside if you don't want to. You can walk from any hotel, convention centers and everything, get to the stadium, get anywhere you need to be, basically, without being outside more than a block or so. So it was pretty well designed, but you're right. We can have some really cold weather come winter.
They're telling me that about Minneapolis, where I'm spending 9 days, Joe. So, yes, my winter will be very wintry this winter. So great to have you on, man. We'll send everybody out to 1070 there to follow you guys out on Twitter as well. Appreciate your time.
Hey, my pleasure and good luck.
You got it. Joe Staysniak, a longtime NFLer and longtime talker of all things sports in Indianapolis. Played there back in the early 90s with Captain Comeback and Ted Marchibroda and the Goose and all those guys, and has been doing sports radio ever since. You can find him out at 1070 The Fan on Twitter as well. Find me out in the buyatoyota.com audio vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn Radio app. We do come in crystal clear from anywhere in the world. Our morning newspaper ships digitally each and every morning with all of our good stuff, including my Ghost of Baltimore football past, present, and future. That'll all be out there. It's all brought to you by Planet Fitness, where it's still $10 a month, never any commitment. Going into 2018, they will get you in shape, and there's one right around the corner from you. If you need some inspiration, Planet of Triumphs has a great website for that. I'm out on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on our Facebook as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.